Just a day after the most prominent sports moment in my life, I want to take a moment to reflect. The Seattle Mariners have been a large part of my life, and I have many fond memories attached to the team. Some of the best ones are forming in the present day with such a rich pool of talent developing before my own eyes, especially on the pitching side of the team. This starting rotation and key contributors from the bullpen are special. There are 3 true stars in the rotation that can go out any given night and give an ace-like performance. Between Gilbert, Castillo, and Kirby, each of them have their own specific strengths, but I don't think any will quite reach the level of Felix Hernandez. Not that they need to, they can reach their own level of excellence and achieve that with one another, but when I think about this group of starting pitchers and how there's potential for them to stay together long term, I can't help but think about Felix Hernandez never having quite the supporting cast like this. Did King Felix ever have a prince alongside him in his 15-year career with Seattle? Let's find out. Debuting against the Tigers in the back end of 2005 at the age of 19, Felix Hernandez turned heads almost immediately. By season's end, Felix proved to be the most valuable pitcher on the team, amassing 2.8 reference WAR in just 12 starts. Right behind him was Jamie Moyer at 2.4 reference WAR at the ripe age of 42. From the jump, Felix was electric, and after a slight sophomore slump in 2006, if you want to call it that, he had earned the opening day start in 2007, taking the role from the previously mentioned veteran Jamie Moyer, as he had been traded to the Phillies in August of 2006. We don't, or I guess I don't want to mention the opening day start in 2008 and why Felix only has 11 instead of 12. 2008 didn't happen. But in all reality, the pitcher who did start opening day for the Mariners in 2008 should have been Felix's second in command for the start of his prime. It is a fabled trade in Mariners history, but I would be remiss to omit Eric Bedard from a video that is searching for a second-in-command to King Felix's reign. Every sign pointed to the fact that Bedard was the better and more accomplished pitcher heading into the '08 season. Bedard had finished the previous year with the Orioles in his age 28 season with a 3.16 ERA over 28 starts and 182 innings pitched. This would reward him with a top 5 Cy Young vote and ultimately would reward the Orioles with a pretty darn good center fielder for many years, along with some nice supplementary pieces from the Mariners. Bedard was viewed by Baseball Prospectus at the time as a favorite for the 2008 Cy Young in their annual preseason preview before being traded to the Mariners in February. In the 15 starts Bedard made in Seattle in 2008, he did pitch well. It wasn't Cy Young worthy, but over 15 starts and 81 innings, he settled with a 3.67 ERA. However, he wouldn't pitch beyond July as he went on the IL with shoulder stiffness and would get arthroscopic shoulder surgery that would sideline him until the 2009 season. Meanwhile, Felix Hernandez would post his best full year yet. He passed the 200 inning mark for the first time in his career and posted his lowest ERA of 3.45. His first half was significantly better than the second, and some would argue that he could have made his first All-Star team in 2008, but as was common with Mariners teams in the Felix era, the team performance usually held him back. In 17 starts in the first half, he amassed 113 innings pitched to a 2.95 ERA, but with a measly 6-6 record. He even threw an immaculate inning in June of '08 and hit a grand slam just a couple days later. So that's pretty cool. 2009, though, would be a season of mystery surrounding the Mariners pitching staff. Before we get to 2009, I will say there are about 50% of you guys who watch the videos who are not subscribed. Please do so, as it helps us out a ton, and we're on the road to 12,000. Bedard was back and pitched better than ever before. Through June 25th, Bedard had made 15 starts and thrown 83 innings. His 2.82 ERA would be his career best, and looked like he was well on his way to posting a year the Mariners had envisioned when they acquired him from the Baltimore Orioles. Unfortunately, a torn labrum would end his season, and Bedard would not be seen again until 2011, but his story with Seattle is essentially done. There are other pitchers at play here in 2009 that played a great second fiddle to Felix's first emergence into superstardom. The first of which was Jared Washburn, a 34-year-old veteran who had been part of the Mariners rotation since 2006. Washburn was putting together the best season of his career before the Mariners traded him to Detroit at the trade deadline. In 20 starts, Washburn posted a 2.64 ERA across 133 innings. He only struck out 79 batters, but that simply wasn't his MO. Coming back to the Mariners from Detroit were 2 young pitchers, Luke French and Mauricio Robles. Ryan Rollins Smith had a fine year as well, mainly pitching in the second half after the departures of Bedard and Washburn, albeit because of a fluke injury that would keep him out from mid-April to the end of May. He worked his way back in Tacoma and eventually rejoined the big league club on July 24th. Happy birthday, Colton. He would pitch to a 3.74 ERA over 15 big league starts and 96 1/3 innings pitched. Was he the answer to second in command with Bedard done for the year and Washburn on his way out the following week? There was simply just no real clarity in 2009 for the pitching side of things, aside from the fact that it was the main reason that the ball club won 85 games with a negative 52 run differential. Welcome to Felix's prime. In his age 23 season, King Felix dominated the game of baseball. In 34 starts, Felix threw 238.2 innings, just an innings and a third off the entire sports leader, Justin Verlander. He finished with a 19-5 record, those 19 wins being tied for the lead in all of baseball as well, and a 2.49 ERA to boot while striking out 217 batters. Felix had the city of Seattle in the palm of his hand. He would earn his first All-Star Game appearance and would finish second in the Cy Young voting to Zach Greinke, who had almost double the reference WAR that Felix had accrued that year. Greinke had 10.4, Felix had 5.9. This would be the dawn of Felix's true peak, one that it's simply unforgettable. In the offseason leading up to the 2010 season, the Mariners somehow acquired a Cy Young Award winner and World Series champion in Cliff Lee. Jack Sorensic was making moves back then to try and augment the roster in a positive way. Sean Figgins was signed that offseason after having an all-star season with the Angels in 2009. They also traded for Milton Bradley, who was just a year removed from an all-star appearance with the Rangers in 2008. Yet, the most fascinating part in all of that was partnering Felix Hernandez with Cliff Lee, another left-handed starter that could go toe-to-toe with the King. Had the Mariners finally found their 1-2 punch at the top of the rotation? Well, Felix and the Mariners had agreed to a 5-year contract extension worth about $78 million just a month after acquiring Cliff Lee, so that duo likely wasn't going to last beyond the 2010 season. That is, if the Mariners held on to Lee the entire year. Hernandez and Lee were pitching out of their minds to start the year, but as the team's success dwindled, the Mariners shipped out their rental starting pitcher on July 4th, who was pitching to a 2.34 ERA in 103 innings. They traded Cliff Lee to the division rival Texas Rangers, who would go on to compete for the World Series in that season, with Cliff Lee at the top of that rotation. Once again, the Mariners let the King stand alone in his castle at Safeco Field, one that would need a trophy case soon. A Cy Young Award was on its way to Seattle as Felix Hernandez put together another dominating year in the American League. A poor record would not hold back voters in this award season, finishing with a 13-12 record. Felix was pretty much the singular bright spot in 2010. The team finished 61-101 and, to put it quite frankly, sucked. Over the year, Felix made 34 starts and threw 249.2 innings, a total he would never reach again. He tossed 6 complete games and pitched to a 2.27 ERA, the lowest in all of baseball. Felix was a workhorse and was damn good at it too. Simply, Felix Hernandez had no other choice because his supporting cast beyond Lee's 13 starts was very suboptimal. Jason Vargas and Doug Fister in their second years with the Mariners both put up an okay year, but nothing special. Somehow, Eric Bedard returned. It's 2011 and a new frontrunner for the second in command of Felix's royal court has emerged. Rookie right-hander Michael Pineda. Signed all the way back in 2005 out of the Dominican Republic, he came out of the gates hot in 2011 and was named the American League Rookie of the Month for April after putting up a 4-1 record with an ERA of 2.01. He also made the All-Star team that year, joining teammates Felix Hernandez and Brandon League as the Mariners representatives at Chase Field. The Mariners gave Pineda the inline track to join Felix as the second in the pecking order after trading Doug Fister, I hardly know her, to the Tigers at the trade deadline this season. Fister had a 3.33 ERA over 21 starts, but an abysmal 3-12 record. Just goes to show how bad the Mariners teams were. He would shine in Detroit though after being acquired there and post an 8-1 record over 11 games and pitch to a 1.79 ERA. Back to Pineda, he would finish the 2011 season as a top 5 in Rookie of the Year. He made 28 starts and threw 171 innings with an ERA of 3.74. It felt as though the future was bright for the Mariners' second spot in the rotation. 2011 was business as usual for Felix. Not his best, but still very good. He tossed 5 complete games over his 33 starts that year. Over 233 2/3 innings pitched, Felix struck out 222 batters and posted an ERA of 3.47. At age 25, Felix had already thrown 1,388 innings in his career. The second most innings thrown in a Mariners uniform from 2005 to 2011? Jared Washburn at 667. There was never a second consistent arm to back up Felix's success, and the team definitely suffered because of it. Would it have solved every issue? No, not at all. But with Pineda putting up such a promising rookie season, there was hope until the Mariners traded him to the Yankees on January 13th, 2012. Same old song and dance from the Mariners with that one, huh guys? 2012, it's a special one for 2 reasons. The first being that Felix Hernandez threw his perfect game on August 15th, 2012. 12 years ago, Felix etched his name into the baseball history books forever. Whether or not people deem him a Hall of Famer or a Hall of Very Good, Felix will always be remembered for throwing a perfect game. That iconic pose at the end is a signal of pure jubilation, one that I will always remember fondly. The second reason, one that might not be so apparent, was Hisashi Iwakuma's first season with the Mariners. Having been a professional for over 10 years in Japan, primarily with the Rakuten Golden Eagles, Iwakuma signed a one-year contract in his age 31 season to join the Mariners in 2012. That year, he split roles as a pitcher and finished the season as a starter and would not look back. He would throw 125 in the third innings pitched and finish with a 3.16 ERA. Hisashi Iwakuma would solidify himself as the Mariners' #2 pitcher for years to come alongside King Felix. It was another standard year for Felix in 2012, perfect game aside. 230 plus innings with an ERA right around 3. Felix was about as consistent as they come with a top 4 Cy Young finish in 2012. His new second-hand man, though, would best him in 2013. In the offseason before the 2013 season, the Mariners and Felix Hernandez agreed to a 7-year, $175 million contract extension, keeping him as a Seattle Mariner until 2019. The main barometer for how and why I started thinking about the Mariners pitching depth beyond Felix Hernandez from 2005 to 2019 is essentially this 2013 season from Hisashi Iwakuma. This season is second to Felix's Cy Young in terms of reference WAR. Felix in 2010, when he won the Cy Young, finished at a 7.2 WAR. Iwakuma in 2013 was at 7.0 flat. He was dominant in 2013. As for Felix during Iwakuma's big breakout, a minuscule top 8 Cy Young finish, making 31 starts with a 3.04 ERA over 204 innings. Felix amassed 5.1 reference WAR. Felix was still doing his thing, but Iwakuma really shined. The rest of the rotation was pretty terrible, but aside from a young Kyle Seager breaking out and a veteran Raul Ibanez popping 29 homers in his age 41 season, this team was not enjoyable to watch. Hisashi Iwakuma was definitely the biggest bright spot. Throwing 219 2/3 innings and pitching to a 2.66 ERA as well, it was no surprise that Iwakuma finished third in the Cy Young voting in 2013. For the first time during Felix's prime, someone had bested him on the mound over the course of an entire year. Every other instance, that player had been traded at the deadline or moved during the offseason before they can really have a chance to sit aside the king in his throne for good. Hisashi Iwakuma earned his chair and rightfully sat in it the entire time he spent with Seattle. 2014 was a pivotal moment in Seattle Mariners history. Robinson Cano was now a Seattle Mariner, and Felix Hernandez and the Seattle Mariners pitching staff had someone in the post-Ichiro era that was a dynamic offensive weapon. A full year of development from Kyle Seager as well saw the Mariners have a positive run differential for the first time in Felix Hernandez's career. There was a different air about the Mariners during the 2014 campaign. The bullpen was lights out with 8 different relievers, all having an ERA plus ranging from 101 by Charlie Furbush to 168 by Dominic Leone. Yes, that Dominic Leone. All of these relievers also tossed more than 38 innings. The low end of that marker was young pitching prospect Taijuan Walker. He made his debut at the tail end of 2013, but saw a bigger role in 2014. He made 5 starts and pitched 8 games in total, totaling 38 innings to a 2.61 ERA. Hopefully looking to join the royal court Hernandez had with Iwakuma among the ranks. Similar to Walker, James Paxton also had made his debut in 2013 and received an uptick in responsibilities in 2014. A bell that rings true to this day. Paxton was sidelined for a big chunk of the season after a lat strain happened in the second start of the season for him. He wouldn't return until August 2nd, but in the 13 starts he did make, he pitched to a 3.04 ERA across 74 innings. If health would allow it, it seemed as if King Felix and his second-hand man Iwakuma would be receiving some reinforcements soon. 2014 was not as successful for Iwakuma, but he was still a stable force in the Mariners rotation, posting a 3.52 ERA over 28 starts and 179 innings pitched. Felix Hernandez, however, did not take kindly to finishing behind Iwakuma in the 2013 Cy Young voting, posting the second best season of his career. His 2014 numbers were incredible. A 15-6 record over 34 starts and 236 innings. He struck out 248 batters for his career high and finished with a 2.14 ERA on the year. He finished second in the award behind Corey Kluber, and many people would argue that this very easily could have been the King's second Cy Young award. He finished 10 points behind Kluber ultimately. Felix made his 5th All-Star game this year, and the Mariners finished with an 85-77 record. It truly seemed like this could be the turning point for King Felix in his tenure with Seattle. Another offensive addition in the offseason, Nelson Cruz, Boomstick Baby, was brought in to help the team score more runs and rely on pitching less. Cruz put up a 159 OPS plus in his first year in Seattle. He did his job. This year is where the pitching started to unfortunately crumble. Iwakuma put up solid numbers as he had done since joining Seattle. The issue was he did not stay healthy the entire year. He He made 6 starts and was put on the shelf with a shoulder injury. He would ultimately return later on and make 14 more starts, one of which was a no-hitter on August 12th against the Orioles. In his 20 starts, he threw 129.2 innings while striking out 111 batters to the tune of a 3.54 ERA. Even though he was injured for part of the year, this would still be the second best season put out by a Seattle Mariners pitcher in 2015. Taijuan Walker did not take a step forward, but as a 22-year-old, he still had plenty of room to grow. He made 29 starts with a 4.56 ERA. Paxton was injured for over half the year again and only pitched 67 innings over 13 starts. The help that King Felix needed was not quite there in 2015, and this would begin Felix's decline as his total innings and wear and tear would catch up to him. From 2005 to 2015, Felix was third in regular season innings pitched with 2,262 innings, only behind Mark Burley of the Chicago White Sox primarily with 2,296, and Dan Herron, who bounced mainly between Oakland, Arizona, and Anaheim with 2,301 innings. Felix was starting to lose a bit of juice, and even in the 2013 season when he only made 31 starts, having had his last 2-3 of that season skipped to rest his oblique, that small amount of rest just wasn't enough. 2015 would be the last season Felix Hernandez reached the 200 inning mark, having thrown 201.2 innings that season. He made his 6th All-Star game and pitched to a 3.53 ERA over 31 starts. Finishing with a record of 18-9, this marked the beginning of the end for King Felix. The first full year of the Dipoto era with Scott Service at the helm, 2016 was another season of close but so far for Felix and the Mariners. Ushering in a new core of superstar players as the King's star status slowly faded, the Mariners offense could only do so much to provide for a pitching staff on its last legs. New young blood from Edwin Diaz provided a jolt at the end of games, but couldn't quite reach the starting rotation. Iwakuma would post his worst year by ERA+, finishing at a 98, which is 2 points below league average. He made all 33 of his starts, which led the team, and almost reached 200 innings, having thrown 199. Iwakuma's ERA would be 4.12, and he would lead the team in strikeouts with 147. Walker put up a pretty similar year to his previous year's totals. Over 25 starts, he had a 4.22 ERA, over 143 and a third innings pitched. His age 23 season, although riddled with a foot injury, still had not seen the jump Mariners fans were hoping out of someone who had been deemed by some as the heir to the throne, or just simply the prince. It was unfair expectations to be put onto Walker. The brighter spot of the two younger arms, James Paxton put together the healthiest season yet in his career, making 20 starts and throwing more than 100 innings. The Big Maple threw 121 innings to a rotation low 3.79 ERA. For Felix, he made 25 starts, having been sidelined by a strained calf for 6 weeks. He finished the year with an 11-8 record and a 3.82 ERA. He did not make the All-Star team and did not receive Cy Young votes. Even with the pitching woes beginning to form, the team finished 86 and 76, just 3 games out of a wildcard spot. After a solid 5 years in a row being Felix Hernandez's second in command, this would mark the stopping point for Hisashi Iwakuma's time in Seattle. Only making 6 starts and throwing 31 innings, Kuma ended up on the injured list in May and never returned to the field in the major leagues. He announced his retirement from professional baseball in 2020. The Mariners also traded Taijuan Walker over the offseason and acquired future fan favorite Mitch Haniger from the Diamondbacks in this trade. With Father Time playing out his hand over Felix's waning years, the Mariners pitching staff continued to grow more and more grotesque each year. The Mariners innings leader in 2017 was Ariel Miranda, who did not pitch well. James Paxton continued to have a relatively healthy tenure, making 24 starts and tossing 136 innings in the process. His 1.40 ERA plus was the best amongst the rotation, and his 2.9 ERA would check off as the team leader as well. Felix Hernandez battled injuries in 2017, only making 16 total starts and throwing less than 100 innings for the first time in his career since he debuted in 2005. His 4.36 ERA was the result of a shoulder injury at the end of April, which would keep him out until the end of June. He then missed the entire month of August with shoulder bursitis. The following season in 2018 would not get any better for King Felix. Although he made the majority of his starts, 28, the numbers had reached a new low. Over 155 and 2/3 innings, Felix allowed a career high in home runs at 27 and pitched to a 5.55 ERA. The once dominant King was a shell of his former self, and he himself knew it. James Paxton turned in another great year, replacing the role Iwakuma left very well. Unfortunately for Paxton, he was more fit for the throne than Felix was at this point. Paxton made 28 starts in 2018 and even tossed a no-hitter in his home country against the Blue Jays on May 8th. He finished the year with 208 strikeouts over 160 innings with a 3.76 ERA. Newly acquired Marco Gonzalez enters the fold in 2018 and put up a solid year in his first tenure with the M's. A 4 flat ERA over 166 and 2/3 innings would give Mariners fans hope that a stable force atop the rotation would join Paxton, as their king was assuredly reaching his end. The offseason leading up to 2019 would say otherwise, unfortunately. After setting the single-season save record in 2018 for the Mariners, Edwin Diaz was traded to the Mets alongside Robinson Cano in a very famous deal that would net the Mariners their future top prospect in Jared Kelenic, along with another prospect in Justin Dunn and some major leaguers, namely Jay Bruce. The Mariners also traded James Paxton this offseason, receiving young pitching prospect Justice Sheffield from the Yankees as the headliner, along with reliever Eric Swanson. The 2019 Mariners were going through an overhaul. The rebuild was setting in. But for Felix Hernandez, he had one last season as the King of Seattle. He passed on the torch of opening day starter to Marco Gonzalez in 2019, ending his streak from 2009 to 2018. Felix's stats from this season simply do not matter, and honestly, neither do the knights in his royal court. In finality, from 2005 to 2019, Felix Hernandez amassed 49.9 reference WAR, the highest of any pitcher in Mariners history. He finished with a 3.42 ERA, which is tied for the best in Mariners history as well. He threw 2,729 innings, struck out 2,524 batters, threw 25 complete games, made 6 All-Star games, won 1 Cy Young, and threw a singular perfect game. But he also had one true right-hand man, mainly because James Paxton is a lefty, but Hisashi Iwakuma kept Felix's pace for 3 years from 2013 to 2015. Felix finished with 16 reference WAR during each other's peaks, while Iwakuma settled with 12, a true definition of a right-hand man, second-in-command, prince to the throne. Felix may never have had an extended period of time with a true number 2 beside him. And maybe that just isn't a common thing in baseball. Maybe it's not as common as I would hope. Harnessing the successes and primes for more than one starter is only something truly dominant teams seem to be able to do. And the Mariners from 2005 to 2019 were anything but dominant. The reason why I say the stats didn't matter in 2019 for Felix and his supporting cast, that season was simply a swan song from the get-go. One that, even though it ended in less than ideal circumstances on September 26, 2019, that final start will be my second most prominent sports memory moment that I have ever laid witness to. Felix Hernandez will always be the king.